Hello and welcome to the Ghost Town Chronicles. Today, we embark on a journey into the haunting world of 10 abandoned asylums from across the globe. These forgotten institutions, once teeming with life, now stand as silent witnesses to their chilling past. Number 1. St. Mary's Asylum. St. Mary's Asylum, located near Stannington, Northumberland, England, had a rich and complex history before its closure in 1995 and subsequent demolition in 2015. Designed by George Thomas Hine in an echelon formation, the asylum opened its doors in 1914 as the Gateshead Borough Lunatic Asylum. It played a vital role during both World Wars, being requisitioned for military use to treat injured soldiers and later serving as a facility for tuberculosis patients. In 1948, St. Mary's Asylum became part of the National Health Service, providing mental health care to its patients. However, as the years went by, the demand for such large-scale institutions diminished, leading to the closure of the asylum in 1995. Despite the demolition of most of the hospital in 2015 to make way for housing, a few buildings managed to survive in various forms. Among the remaining structures are 34 former staff houses known as the Villas, the former Gatekeeping Lodge, the Chief Medical Superintendent's Home, and the Administration Block, which has been repurposed and renamed St. Mary's Inn. These preserved buildings serve as a reminder of the asylum's past and contribute to the historical fabric of the area. The isolated location of St. Mary's Asylum has helped preserve its buildings and offices, offering a glimpse into the past. Exploring the site reveals remnants of equipment among the ruins and an abandoned chapel, although it is fenced off and unoccupied. In 2015, the hospital underwent renovations and reopened as St. Mary's Inn and B&B, retaining many of the original features of the buildings. Number 2. Poole Park Asylum. Poole Park Asylum at Claudenard, near Ruthin, has stood abandoned since closing in 1990. Like any good abandoned asylum, it's damp, dilapidated, and deathly silent. The estate of Poole Park began as a deer park for the nearby Ruthin Castle. Following its time as a hunting ground, the property was passed between a series of wealthy landowners. The elegant mock Tudor-style manor house that still stands today was constructed in 1862 for the second Lord Bagot. In 1937, the house was sold to the North Wales County's Mental Hospital, which was in need of a second location to house overflow patients from the nearby Denbigh Insane Asylum, the one with all the cages and lobotomies. Poole Park held 87 patients at capacity, but in times of need had as many as 120. For a brief stint of time during World War II, the grounds also held a prisoner of war camp. Today, the solid wooden floors and intricate wood paneling have rotted due to water damage. The house has been looted for lead and copper, and its ceilings are dripping water and shedding plaster. You'll be hard-pressed to find an intact window. However, a beautiful old staircase still remains, spilling down 2 flights of stairs into a grand entrance hall. Number 3. Medfield State Hospital. Medfield State Hospital was founded in 1892, and for over 100 years served as a self-sustaining institution and community for thousands of mentally ill patients until closing its doors in 2003. Unlike the imposing Kirkbride asylums built in the state of Massachusetts in the 1800s, Medfield State Hospital was designed under the cottage plan, and at its peak consisted of 58 mostly brick buildings spread across a large campus. While its layout and longevity alone are standout features of the Medfield State Hospital, perhaps its most notable quality is that while other similar institutions today face demolition or have already been destroyed, this hospital campus has been reopened to the public who are welcome to walk the grounds during the daytime. While some buildings have been flattened, over 35 of them remain standing and in various states of disrepair. Entry to all buildings is prohibited, and security officers are regularly present to enforce this rule, but visitors are welcome to explore the abandoned grounds and many walking paths, free of cost. Since closing, the hospital also served as filming locations for motion pictures such as Shutter Island, The Box, and Knives Out. The town of Medfield officially purchased the hospital in December 2014, and the future of this magnificent historical site is uncertain. Number 4. St. Albans Sanatorium. It doesn't take a paranormal investigator to realize this building is haunted by its past. Broken toys litter the floor, while old wheelchairs rust in corners beneath grimy, peeling walls. The whole building has a dark, eerie air to it, making any visitor aware they're treading on grounds sullied by decades of horrors. The once stately building was originally a Lutheran boys' school. It was a terrible place to go to class, as bullying was encouraged within the increasingly competitive student body. As a result of the hostile learning environment, a number of its students have taken their lives. After the school was shut down, St. Albans reopened in 1916 as a psychiatric infirmary. It was supposed to be a better alternative to the other asylums scattered throughout the United States, boasting a rooftop garden, bowling alley, and even a small farm. But conditions were far from ideal for the patients who were confined to the sanatorium. Vulnerable patients were subjected to cruel and inhumane experimental treatments, which often left them permanently disabled or resulted in death from lobotomies or insulin-induced comas. Others were shocked via electroconvulsive therapy. Still others were completely wrapped, mummy-style, in towels drenched with ice-cold water or left to soak in a tub for days at a time during routine hydrotherapy sessions. The sanatorium was ill-equipped to deal with the thousands of patients that entered for treatment. By 1945, its staff-to-patient ratio was 48 to 6,509. The desperately small staff and inhumane living conditions led the building to witness further deaths within its already grim walls. By the late 20th century, the sanatorium was on a steady decline. It finally closed in the 1990s. Number 5. Dorea Institute. Exploring the crumbling, derelict ruins of this abandoned asylum is a chilling, haunting experience. Children here were once put through vile treatments as part of a mid-20th century plot to bamboozle funds from the Canadian government. The Dorea Institute was one of the many orphanages involved in Quebec's Premier Maurice Duplessis governing in the 1940s and 50s. During his tenure, Duplessis was part of a corrupt scheme to convert church-run orphanages into asylums to get the churches more funds from the federal government. As a result, thousands of children whose parents had died, who were abandoned by their family, or who sent away by single mothers were falsely declared mentally ill. They were forced to go through horrific treatments, including lobotomies, electric shock, water torture, to name a few, for no reason other than being orphans. The asylum closed in the 1990s. The buildings have long been abandoned and have been ravished by vandals. The basement is flooded in a few places, and the ceilings are caving in as well. There is graffiti everywhere, some amazing work, and some less so. There have been recent fires, possibly caused by visitors exploring the site, or possibly to deter them. Either way, this, and many other abandoned buildings in Quebec are being torn down, or are charging for visits, making it harder to explore the sites of the province's past, which is filled with so many fascinating things and places to visit. Before we continue our journey, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel if you enjoyed the video. Number 6. Athens Lunatic Asylum. Athens Lunatic Asylum opened in 1874 on 141 acres and it was designed for 500 patients. By the 1950s it had expanded to a facility with 78 buildings on 1,000 acres. During its active years, tens of thousands of patients were treated with around 1,800 buried in cemeteries on the ground. At one time it was the largest employer in the state of Ohio. However, it was the patients who worked the grounds. That is, until catatonic drugs became common. Archives on the asylum show that hydrotherapy, electroshock therapy, lobotomies, and psychotropic drugs were all used as treatments. The asylum closed in 1993, and the property was bought by Ohio University. Today, as renovations continue, the old asylum has several uses, such as a daycare, art museum, art studios, surplus store, biotech labs, OU police department, and education-related uses. The Ridges is also known for its use of the Kirkbride Plan, a unique and distinct asylum plan that used a batwing design and was built on the idea of moral treatment. Kirkbrides featured lots of natural light and airflow. Today, the Ridges may be considered the largest and most complete example of a Kirkbride still standing. Number 7. Central State Hospital. The abandoned buildings of Central State Hospital, now in a state of neglect and decay, once comprised the largest mental health facility the world had ever seen, with more than 200 buildings on 2,000 acres. Opened in 1842 as the Georgia State Lunatic, Idiot, and Epileptic Asylum, the hospital's story was much like other mental health institutions of its time. At first, its treatment methods seemed effective and humane. Patients took part in their rehabilitation and helped run the asylum, tending the land and the facilities alongside staff. But by the 1960s, the hospital's population had swelled to 12,000, way over its maximum capacity. It was badly understaffed, with a doctor-to-patient ratio of 1 to 100. Under these conditions, the quality of treatment declined vastly, and the asylum became notorious for its mistreatment of those committed there. Rumors abounded of children confined to cages, adults living in straitjackets, and forced shock therapy with electricity, insulin, and ice baths. A 1959 exposé revealed that none of the 48 doctors patrolling the wards were actually psychiatrists. Mothers across the South threatened to send misbehaving children to Milledgeville. Central State began closing in the wave of deinstitutionalization during the 60s and 70s, but it wasn't until 2010 that it shut its doors for good. The buildings have sat empty and abandoned ever since. Today, a visit to the former Central State Hospital is an eerie experience. The property includes buildings given to a prison, the houses of former doctors, and a pecan grove, the hospital buildings themselves, as well as a cemetery of roughly 25,000 unmarked graves. Around 2,000 somber markers, in the nearby Cedar Lane Cemetery, memorialize these unknown dead. Number 8. Norwich State Hospital. Norwich State Hospital operated from 1904 to 1996, and since then has fallen into an eerie state of disrepair. The first patients were prisoners, although this expanded into the geriatric and drug users. Underground passageways built under the complex were used to transport equipment, and reportedly were also used as a place to torture patients with cruel mental health treatments. Paranormal investigators and urban explorers still seek access to these dark tunnels, which can still be used to reach the abandoned hospital. In 2014, most of the buildings were torn down. The administration building has been saved with plans for future development, and a few other buildings remained. In 2017, the Mohegan Tribal Gaming Authority announced plans to build new facilities on the site, including an indoor water park, a senior living center, and a sports complex. However, by 2019, almost all of the hospital's buildings were demolished and the tunnels have been excavated and filled to clear out the property for construction. Number 9. Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. The Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, which changed names over the years and was known as the Weston State Hospital later in life, operated from 1864 to 1994. Today it stands as a testimony to the inhumane practices once used in mental health. Sitting on 26.5 acres, this spooky area is home to numerous buildings, including a museum, a gift shop where a few of the remaining employees still work, and an abandoned cemetery. Famous for its looming structure, it was built using the Kirkbride design, which was mentioned earlier in the video. Much of the asylum remains closed off to the general public as the main building and outbuildings are in bad repair and are structurally unsound. A wide choice of tours are available, and specialty supernatural ghost hunts, even overnighters, are available for those searching for tortured spirits who have yet to escape. Number 10. Denbigh Insane Asylum. Now in a state of picturesque decay, Denbigh Asylum, also known as North Wales Hospital, was actually abandoned relatively recently, closing its doors in 1995 after 147 years of service. Constructed between 1844 and 1848, the hospital served as a refuge for Welsh-speaking mental patients. Originally designed to accommodate about 200 patients, it was expanded to alleviate overcrowding in 1899 and eventually was home to as many as 1,500 patients. When it was founded, many hoped the hospital would be a source of restorative treatment, rather than a costly dumping ground where those suffering from mental illness could be kept away from the rest of society. But as the hospital grew, patient welfare was increasingly set to the side. Tasks around the hospital were done largely by labor from the patients, and treatment consisted largely of sedation and time in Turkish baths. Plans to close the hospital were put in motion in the late 1980s, and the main unit was shut down in 1995. The hospital has been vandalized and looted since its closing, and plans had been made to demolish the historic building to make way for 280 new homes and businesses, but these were never completed. In 2008, the buildings were featured in an episode of Most Haunted, and later the same year a devastating fire broke out, causing more damage to the aging structure. Today, its fate is uncertain. Make sure to check out our other videos. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. See you next time for more Ghost Town Chronicles.